We all know there's haters out there around Colorado, around Deion Sanders. But yesterday, we learned that even other coaches want Colorado to fail in 2023. I'm going to talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Buffs.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode, we got a good one. We're going to be talking about coaches wanting Colorado and Deion Sanders to fail. Coaches around the country are not too pleased with how he's using the portal, and they may or may not be rooting for him to not succeed in 2023. Don't say my bad in front of Coach Prime. We learned that yesterday. And then Joel Klatt, even despite chatting with Coach Prime and getting Coach Prime's thoughts, he still has his doubts about the team in 2023. So we're going to dive into all of that. But before we do, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Buffs your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, your team every day. Like I said, let's dive right in. So yesterday I talked about, which you guys could go check it out. I talked about Josh Pate from 24/7 Sports discussing, he was answering a question, what if Colorodo's transfers succeed, or what if they all hit right away, and what that means for the season. I saw that clip, but for some reason I decided to go back and watch because the episode was an hour and a half long. So I like Josh Pate anyway, so I'm watching the video. Well, there was a pause when I stopped watching it, and I wish I didn't, because I learned that coaches around the country are not rooting for Coach Prime at all. So I wrote about this over at Athlon. So if you guys want to go check out my work over there, go do that. I said, while Sanders' experiment bringing in 51 transfers is risky, it could end up, and this is what Josh Pate was saying. If the portal works out, it could be the blueprint for how coaches rebuild their teams. Coaches in first years, even coaches that are not in their first year, they could imply or urge guys to leave so that way they could bring in transfers. But coaches are still skeptical of how Sanders put together this roster, how they'll work together. And this is a quote from Pate. He said that some coaches are even secretly rooting for this experiment, this transfer portal extravaganza to crash and burn. That's what he said. There's coaches out there that want this to crash and burn. And obviously, I think there's a couple reasons why. One, I don't think every coach could do what Coach Prime did. I think there's a few programs out there where their brand is big enough. Like if Ohio State, for some reason, fired their coach and didn't want all of their 4- and 5-star players, and the next coach came in and said, "Hey, I want all the transfers in the portal come to Ohio State." Guys would go to Ohio State. It's Ohio State. Same thing with Alabama, schools like Texas, Georgia. I think that would work there too. But there's maybe 5, 6, 7 programs out of 133 where that works. Two, I think one of them being Pat Narduzzi. I think him being vocal about how he feels about Coach Prime's transfer portal stuff. I think him being vocal is probably not he's not an isolated figure out there. I'm sure there's a little coaches community of old coaches, old guys discussing how this is bad for college football and how they don't like it. I'm sure Pat Narduzzi was just the only one to come forward, or Jim Moore too, I believe, did as well. I think they're just the only two that have come forward and said anything publicly about it, because I think coaches know if they say anything publicly, they're going to get public backlash. They're going to get ridiculed, criticized. And so I'm sure there's more coaches out there that are counting on this to fail than counting on this to succeed. I heard Lane Kiffin in an interview with ESPN a while back talking about how it's something new we've never seen. I think there's just a lot of questions around it, and so I think people don't like the unknown. They don't like not knowing what's going to happen. It's not the traditional way of building a team, so people are upset with it. Realistically, and I've said it and I'll say it again, Coach Prime had to do what he had to do. That roster was horrible last year. They statistically were ranked towards the bottom of every category imaginable. They literally were by far the worst team in college football. They lost almost every game by 30 points. It was just not great. So I think Coach Prime had to do what he had to do. I just think that, like I said, people were not a fan of the optics of it because I'm bringing my own luggage and it's Louis straight to the face of a team that was probably excited to have Deion Sanders as a coach. And then two, I just feel like they know that's probably not something that they would be able to pull off. But again, all these coaches that are rooting on them to crash and burn, they either have a chance to be proved right or wrong. And I feel like Colorado, I would lean towards proving them wrong. I just don't feel I would never feel confident in betting against Coach Prime. I think realistically, if Colorado has any semblance of a good season next year, there's going to be a lot of coaches eating crow, and there's going to be a lot of coaches evaluating how they reconstruct the roster. Moving forward. I guess we'll just have to wait and see and kind of just, I guess, bite our tongues for now because realistically, there's no way to prove them wrong until they hit the field, which is, I believe I saw on a countdown yesterday, college football season's like over 70 days away, which honestly, it's like close, but not close. It's like if you're running a marathon, you get to like the halfway point, you're like 13 miles. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm halfway. Still got to run 13.2 miles. I'm like, it doesn't feel that close, if you know what I mean. So again, Coach Prime has always been he's always been criticized, under scrutiny is what I was going to say. He's always been criticized when he was a player. He was very, I want to say cocky, I guess. He was cocky, cool, confident, had swagger. He was not afraid to tell NFL teams no. He was not afraid to tell baseball teams no. He did what he wanted, and he was good enough to do so. And I think he's bringing that same energy to college coaching. And obviously, there's guys who don't like how that looks, and I think it's a difference of philosophy. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I was definitely surprised to hear because obviously Josh Pate knows he has a lot of connections, and he knows that if he says something like that, it's probably gonna come to fruition and be or not fruition, but it's gonna be something that people kind of hold on to. And so for him to say coaches want to crash and burn, I feel like that's a pretty big statement, and I think it's probably true that other coaches are not rooting for Deion Sanders in Colorado in 2023. But regardless, just gotta wait and see. Okay, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on all the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to join today. I like Shohei Ohtani hitting home runs. He leads the Angels in just about every single category. Deli De La Cruz, get him on stolen bases or something. I don't know. He's super fast, super energetic. Don't miss your chance to snag a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. Okay, let's dive right back in. We talked about coaches wanting Deion Sanders in Colorado to crash and burn. Now we're going to talk about Coach Prime, a personal preference that I learned about yesterday through one of his son's videos, Well Off Media. He doesn't like when players say "my bad," and I thought this was interesting because, well, first of all, let's address the culture. We knew that he had a horrible culture. Not he inherited a horrible culture at Colorado. Carl Durrell just wasn't the culture builder that Colorado needed. When Coach Prime comes in, he literally says, he comes in to meet the team that struggled last year. They won one game. He goes, they obviously know who he is. I'm Deion Sanders. I'm here to coach you guys. I'm here to turn this program around and give it the love and attention it deserves. I'm bringing my own luggage. It's Louis. And then all of a sudden he goes to meet with all the position groups, and he's got players bumping music with a boombox because that's what they always did. And I saw TikToks of this team like making memes about, or videos, not memes, I guess, making videos about Coach Prime telling them to leave, and like they're laughing about it. And it's just, they were an unserious program. Colorado was an unserious program under Carl Durrell. I think it's disappointing to say that, because obviously that means the program is in basically shambles, which nobody wants their favorite program to be in shambles. But Carl Durrell kind of led this program into the ground, and now it's Coach Prime's job to lead it out of the ground. But continuing on, he kind of I mean, those kids. The music thing still gets me to this day, but he's instilling a new culture. There's only 10 guys on scholarship from last year's roster, which means there's 51 ish. I think 51 transfers, and obviously all the recruits that he brought in. So it was a mess last year, but now he's bringing in his culture, bringing in a new mindset, and even with all these new transfers who are there to dominate, as he once said, he still has to instill his culture. I think these guys all know that it's a serious thing going on in Boulder. I think they still have to get used to his culture, his style of teaching, and for some of those guys, there's just little things that they have to learn. In a recent well off media video, um, I don't remember what the mistake was, but it looked like they were running with they were doing a drill, and one of the players said "my bad" to Coach Prime, and Coach Prime went on a little mini rant. He said, "I can't stand my bad. I know it's your bad. Coaches hate that. Parents hate that. Don't say my bad because we know it's your bad," and which is honestly pretty funny. I think I'm a my bad person because it's like I say it more so like in the sense of like, "Oh, my bad, I didn't hear that you said that," or like, "My bad, I didn't," but that's the same thing, and so I guess I have a habit to break now, um, because realistically, I think it's the player's way of trying to be accountable, but I also think because in the video he does this, he's like, and if you're listening, I'm hitting my chest, and he's saying like, they're not saying anything, and he's like, "That's universal for saying my bad," because I think sometimes players think that they tap their chest a few times and uh like they look like they regret their decision. It's like, okay, I'm fine. I said my bad, and now we're moving on. And I think coaches are like, no, you literally need to fix that because it is your bad, and you do it again, you'll not play. So I believe it's Deion Sanders Jr. behind the camera. He goes, so what would you prefer? Because I think that's a fair question. What would you prefer rather than my bad? And Coach Prime Fashion says, just shut up and then do it over. Do it better. Want better. Um, I think that's an old skill style of teaching. I kind of wrote about that as well. Um, he also continued on, which I feel like he's preparing these guys for life. I think a lot of people view him as a college football coach, but he's a football coach he's a life coach that happens to dabble in football is what I'm going to call him. Because he says in the real world, you don't get too many my bad opportunities. You'll just get fired. While Sanders is definitely a modern coach. I think he has a old school style to him. And I think this generation, my generation, I think we could learn from that because I think there's some, especially with NIL, and I talked about it, where some guys are valuing NIL more than they should. There's some, I guess, a little cockiness. People think they deserve things, and they're not like held accountable for their actions. But I like to see the culture that he's building. I love to see it. Before we continue on, Locked On NBA's mock draft specials here, and it's bigger than ever. Follow along the entire first round in a 6-episode ultimate mock draft experience. Only Locked On could deliver. All episodes are available now on Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. But yeah, I think Coach Prime has a real sense of he wants to make these guys better players, better men, and just all around better people. And I think we're seeing that, and I think that's a good thing for young male athletes. I think there's always a sense of entitlement, which I mean, rightfully so, I guess. You're a good athlete, but I think he's coaching them life lessons that we could all use now or later. But yeah, it made me laugh because Coach Prime, every once in a while, he just has like this old school mentality where it's like the numbers thing. It's not the first time a coach has ever made guys earn numbers, but his explanation, he's like, I got guys who aren't going to do anything that want to wear number one. You're not number one. Same thing with this. My bad. He's like, I know it's your bad. Don't tell me that. I know that. And so I just feel like every now and then we see a little bit of old schoolness, which is kind of funny because he's probably one of the best, which I don't know if it's him on Twitter, but he's got a really good social media presence. So he's like the perfect mix of old school and new school. But hey, that's what he does. That's what makes Coach Prime Coach Prime. Okay. When we come back, we're going to be talking about why Joel Klatt is still doubting Colorado in 2023. Welcome back. We're talking about why Joel Klatt is still doubting Colorado in 2023. He met with Coach Prime the other day. kind of had a nice powwow, nice sit down, a great interview, really. A lot of snippets from that interview came out, and I think we got a really great opportunity to learn about Colorado football, Deion Sanders as a person, Coach Prime as a coach, um, but we're still, um, I think, we're some people are still doubting them, and Joel Klatt is clearly one of them. He said Colorado having success in 2023 is unrealistic, and he goes, "Listen, I'm a Colorado alum. If you didn't know, Joel Klatt played quarterback at Colorado. He said, I'm a Colorado alum, right? This expectation that they're just going to be like gangbusters their first year is somewhat unrealistic. And the reason is because what I tried to explain to Sanders, and this was on the Will Kane podcast, a plus 3 or 4 win in the column is a drastic improvement for any team in the country, much less a team in the country that was 1-11. Dang, I was trying not to say 1-11 this episode. That's 2 shots now. Dang. And lost by an average of 29 points. They were the worst team by a wide margin. The next closest team was Northwestern, who was also 1-11, but they lost by an average of 14 points. So they doubled up on the average margin of loss that Northwestern had. So that being said, if they win 3 games or 4 games, people have to understand that it's not just a drastic, but like a monumental jump forward for a program. And yet there's sentiment that they're like going to win the league or come out and be an 8-win team. From my seat, that's somewhat unrealistic. I see what he's saying here. I feel like, and I know you guys hate when I do this, but it's what I got to do. I got to play devil's advocate. If you listen to what I've said this whole time, I think Colorado could push for a bowl game, and I think that's a very successful season. I think once we start talking 8-9 wins, I feel like that gets unrealistic as well. I think Joel Klatt is kind of just addressing the fact that some people are placing a lot of hopeful expectations on this team, and then what comes with unrealistic expectations. Like I see some people saying they're going to go 12-0. That'd be great. Some people say they're going to win the championship. Statistically, according to the blue chip ratio, that's not possible unless they're the one team that does it. But dating back to 2012, every college football champion has had at least 51% of their roster be made up of blue chip players, so 4 or 5-star players, and Colorado does not have that. I don't even know. I would imagine they have probably 5. I think I saw someone in the comments say they have 5 blue chippers, 4 or 5, and that's not going to do it. I think, well, I guess they have this past recruiting class, so maybe we'll say 8 or 9 at the most. But they don't have what it takes to win the championship right away. I'm not saying they can't compete in the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 is at its strongest. I think I feel like, I don't know, with expectations, you guys got mad at me when I told you what to expect. So I'm not telling you what to expect. I'm just telling you guys, don't be upset with the team if they don't meet your expectations. Because again, this team is trying to turn around. You guys know what the Carl Durrell experience was like. They won 5 games in 2 years. They were an unserious football program. They were playing music when coaches were trying to talk to them. They were making videos throughout the season about losing and how funny it was to be 1-11. They were making jokes about Colorado's new head coach, Deion Sanders, comes in, tells them to get off. They were making jokes about it. It's a very unserious situation, and the program is now trying to reset itself and turn around and become a much better situation. And realistically, Coach Prime will be the guy to do that. He's going to turn this program around. I just don't know year one right away. Maybe not. Who knows? The only one that knows is the guy above, I guess. And all the future, the fortune tellers out there, you guys know as well as anyone. Maybe, but again, I feel like the expectations here are a little lofty for some of you. I think some of you are very realistic. Some of you not so much. I think Joel Klatt, I think he didn't say 6 wins was unrealistic. So I think he thinks they can make a bowl game. I think he kind of draws the line when he says 9 to 10. But again, you guys are fans. Fan is short for fanatic. So you go and do any part of it, anything you need to do. He did continue saying he wouldn't have any part of it. Talking about Sanders, what he wants in a program, and talking about how he changed the program. What he wants in a program, and in particular, the members of the program, whether it's coaching, staff, or players, everybody, all the members of the program. So he pointed at thinking about ultimate success, and just not these incremental pieces of success that they might have along the way. Coach Prime wants long-term goals, long-term visions. Winning 1 game does not make you a winner, but winning, say, 9 games does. So Coach Prime has the right mindset. This team will have the right mindset. I think it's just a lot of we're going to see of how good they could truly be this upcoming season. It's going to be a great season to watch. I'm very excited to kind of see what Colorado turns into, and I'm very excited to have you guys along the way. Tomorrow's episode should have John Garcia Jr. on here to talk about Danny O'Neal. He participated at the Elite 11. We're going to talk about what he was good at, what he needs to work on, and how he stood how he compared to the other top quarterbacks in the country. So you won't want to miss that. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, comment below if you have any questions that you want me to address for the mailbag on Friday. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Tuesday.